Foster care. So how do you prepare your other children when a foster child is getting ready to leave? As a licensed foster family for over 16 years, we have had kids stay a year, 2 years, and even 2.5 years before they've left our home. And let me just tell you right now, there's really no easy way to have a foster child leave. Also, to let you know, our family is not the best at how to deal with when a foster child leaves, because some of the history of our family, when we've had a really long placement and they've moved on either to a different foster home, an adoptive home, or back to their biological relatives, we've done this. We've gotten a puppy before. We have flown and taken a trip to Disneyland and said, let's just get out of here. We cannot cope. We would just want to leave to get away from the memories. And we've also turned around and taken another foster child immediately after a child has left. And that hasn't always worked out so great either. My name is Jen Avellaneda, and I am a blogger and a writer over at richfaithrising.com. You can check out my blog. It will be in the link below, as well as other social media connections if you want to follow me there. Let me just start by saying there is room in our hearts for as many foster placements as we want to take. I think sometimes there can be this notion like my heart only has capacity for fill in the blanks, whatever that may be, 2 children or 5 children or one major loss. I just can't handle it anymore. But what we've experienced is that our hearts tend to grow. They're kind of like a balloon. The more we fill them, the more they grow and expand. And our heart capacity is simply multiplies. What we've found is when a foster child is in our home, there is a special part of our heart that gets reserved specifically for that child. And when that foster child leaves and they're no longer in our home, it is like there is a room in our heart where the door gets locked, it gets shut. There are memories, there are moments, there's laughter, there's stories about that child. And no amount of activities or fun or trips or puppies or other foster children can come and take that place in that part of your heart where that child lived. And what I found is grief is a kind of a funny thing. Sometimes we want to ignore it or pretend it's not there. Sometimes we want to just run right through it and move on to the next season of our lives. But what I've found is much like the children in our home, we also need space and time to process that grief. We need to acknowledge it for what it is, and we need to walk towards really just the memories and the loss and feel the emotions of having that child in our home and the loss and the grief when they leave. I want to discuss the time frame for when kids leave that have been foster placements in our home. But before I do, make sure if this is a video that interests you in this kind of content about foster care or adoption or family, make sure to subscribe below, like this video and give it a thumbs up and ring the bell for future notifications. So the time frame. Sometimes foster kids can leave with a lot of notice. Sometimes we can know and kind of plan and prepare our kids for when a foster child leaves, and other times we don't. There are some situations where the transition period, it can be longer, more than a couple of days, and that often includes one, when a child has been in your home for a long time. If a child has been in your home for years, oftentimes the state or your department will try to make the transition slower for the sake of that child. Another reason is because maybe the family that child is going to, they need to prepare. Maybe it's a biological family member and they need to get housing. Or maybe it is another adoptive home and they need to set up an extra bedroom for that child. The transition can be a little bit longer, and perhaps that child doesn't know the person that they're going to their house. Maybe it's a distant relative, and there needs to be a time where that child can adjust and become aware, like, this is my grandparent who I've never met. I want to get to know them. And so they feel safe as they get ready to transition. And again, that really just depends on the age and the decisions of the state and the judges involved in your case. When a child does move out of state, there can be something called the ICPC. And what that is an interstate compact on the placement of that child. And when that happens, that does take time. So a child won't move immediately. There's paperwork and legalities that will make that transition to a home out of state a little bit longer. There are times when the transition is shorter, and that can be in situations where maybe the state can't determine dependency, that there is a reason or a cause that that child gets removed from the home and into foster care. And in situations like that, the child can go back to biological family as soon as even hours after court. Another incident is maybe the court has determined that that child, that biological parent is fit to go home, and that child hasn't been with you for a while, and that child is really eager or desiring to leave to go back to biological family. That biological family has done everything that's required of them by the state, and there can be a immediate or a sudden or a really quick transition for that child to go back to biological family. And when there is a sudden or a shorter transition out of your home, that can be hard. It can be hard on everyone involved, whether the child has stayed in your home for 2 weeks or 2 months or even 2 years. Sudden transitions can be harder in a lot of ways because there isn't the opportunity really to prepare your family or your children that are already in your home for that transition. So now I'm going to give you 10 ways to really prepare your family members in your home for a child's transition out of your home. And at the end of this video, I'm going to share my final thoughts. So make sure to stick around to the end of this video. The first way to really prepare your children or your family that's already in your home for a transition of a foster child out of your home is from the day that child arrives. Explain to your family members, whether they're 2 or 3 or 20 or even adults, explain to them that this child has another mom and a dad, or this child has another family, and we are just helping to take care of this child until it can go back to its original and its birth family. Doing that really helps to give a mindset from the get-go that this is not our baby, or this is not our toddler, or not our school-age child. This is someone else's child. And as foster parents, our job is to care for that child until that child can go back to its original family. Number 2, as a child has been in your home for a while, maybe they are becoming like part of your family, and that child is getting ready to transition maybe to adoptive family or to a long-term foster home if they've been in your home maybe for the 30 days receiving care placement. And in situations like that, what I would do is I would explain to a child ahead of time. Don't wait till the day that that child leaves, but explain, we are getting ready to move this child to a different home. Explain that there is maybe an optimal home out there. Maybe there is a forever home or an adoptive home. And explain to your child or your family members and prepare them. Let them kind of, wash clothes with you or fold things, or maybe prepare the luggage or get all the supplies ready so they can be a part of that potential move as a child gets ready to transition out of your home. The third thing, when a child gets ready to leave your home, that you might want to do with your own family that lives in your home already or your adopted kids, is to explain ahead of time that there are naturally going to be big emotions when that child leaves. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes kids transition smoothly and it's not a big deal, but maybe to explain that there can be lots of different feelings associated with that child that might leave your home. And what I like to do is I like to label some of the potential feelings ahead of time. Say, you may feel anger, you may feel frustration, you may feel abandonment in a sense, you may feel guilt, like if you had just done something better, that child would have stayed. You may feel joy or even happiness, depending on the chemistry of everyone in the home and how everyone got along. And to let them know that there are no bad feelings, that feelings just are. It is just important to really label those feelings so that you can talk about them with your child. And as an ex-teacher, a foster parent for 16 years, as well as an adoptive and biological mom, I've created something called the Feelings Book. It is just a way for kids to help identify and log and really track their feelings. It's really simple. You could do it with your toddler and maybe even with your teenager. There's a couple pages each day to walk through so that a child can really grasp their feelings and their emotions during the transition of a foster child that has left your home. So make sure to check it out. The link will be below if that is something that maybe would help you and your family as a child gets ready to transition out of your home. So continuing with number 3, yes, I would discuss emotions and feelings that may come when a child leaves. And I also would discuss acceptable versus unacceptable unacceptable responses to that child leaving. Unacceptable responses would be hitting someone else, screaming, or harming someone else. Acceptable emotions that would come out of the loss of a foster child, maybe to journal, or again, get that journal and have them write in it every day. Have them circle, are they feeling like a tornado today, or they're feeling like a thundercloud, or, how are they doing? They'll get to really label and work through their feelings in that way. I would also let that child know that there may be some mixed feelings. And again, in the feelings journal, there is an area where we feel cloudy and we feel sunny. We feel a mixture some days of really good and bad about a situation or the loss of a foster child. And so maybe to let them know ahead of time, it's okay to be sad, but also to kind of be happy because maybe they're getting more attention with their family members, or, they're getting their needs met in a different way. And that it is okay to combine lots of feelings when we're dealing with the grief of a foster child that has left our home. The fourth way to handle grieving in your home, or to prepare your child when a foster child has left your home, is to encourage your family member to grieve together. Encourage one another to maybe sit down and have a powwow once a week and really check up on each other's feelings, or really reflect on the past season when that foster child was there. I think it's good to give a child some space, but too much alone time, too much really isolation, it can turn dark really quick. It can turn maybe even to self-harm or self-hate or guilt or condemnation, or maybe even fear that are they going to get replaced? Are they going to have to be kicked out of the house or have to move suddenly? And so really to grieve together, and at every opportunity, see if you can engage that child so that they can share their feelings about the loss of a foster child. Look at old photos. Talk about old stories of when that child was in your home, and that will help the healing process. And number 4, as we are talking about grieving, to make sure that you continue to talk about that foster child. I've seen people that when a child has left, or when there's a sudden change, or even maybe when a relative has passed away, that there's some people that stonewall. They don't want to talk about that person. They don't want to deal with the emotions. However, that is not really long-term healthy for that child. Tell funny stories about that child, or about you and experience that you guys had, or a trip, or maybe a saying they used to say. I know for us, it's been years later, and we still tell stories about some of the kids that have been in our home, and just really funny memories. And we laugh and we engage and we bring that child to life, even 10 years later. And we do that intentionally because as we talk about something, we have an opportunity to open our heart and to grieve at a deeper level than if we would have just shut it down and not think about it and not talk about it. And so make sure to talk about grieving and talk about that child in the process of a foster child leaving, but also after that child has left. The 5th recommendation that I would have for you to help your child as a foster child leaves is to not discount any of their feelings. I can hear sometimes parents say, you're not feeling that way, and no, it's not like that, or really to try to switch the narrative so the parent feels in control. But it is really vital to, again, let that child have a say. If they feel even mad about a foster child leaving, to not say, no, you don't feel mad, you're really feeling this way, and you should be feeling this way. To try to avoid you should, or you could, or you would, or this is what I think, or no, it's not that way. To really let that child sit in the emotion, not to dwell in it for months on end, but really to sit in how they're feeling at that moment and give them freedom and space to express themselves. It's not the feeling in and of itself that is bad or the problem. It is how that child expresses it. So maybe a child will say, I'm angry that this foster child has left. And that is fine and healthy. But if they're cutting themselves, or they're harming themselves, or they're harming other people, that is where you really need to step in and possibly get some professional help. The 6th way to prepare your children that are already in your home for a foster child leaving is to really talk about how life is going to look after that child leaves. Discuss some things that you might be able to do together, some things that maybe that child can do that it wasn't able to do when there was maybe a high needs child in their home, or a child that had a lot of appointments. Really get that child to look to the future and to prepare their mind for really a new reality, a new lifestyle away from that foster child and what that might look like. You can talk about places that you might go together. You may say, we are going to get a lot more cuddle time. Maybe you can say, you're going to be able to do this or that, or we're going to have reading time every night. This is what it's going to look like. And we don't need to hype it up. We don't need to make it a celebration when a foster child leaves, because it is hard for everybody involved. So we don't want to just really blanket over negative feelings, but we do want to really switch that child's mind to a positive narrative where they can grab a hold of something good, even in the middle of something super hard. The seventh way that you can prepare your own children for a foster child leaving is to really embrace your own feelings and to express your own grief. When we are parents, we tend to want to have it all and be all, and we tend to want to put on an image like we have it all together, especially I think as foster parents, because there is this idea, well, we signed up for foster kids. We knew that this loss or this grief was coming. And so instead of shaming ourselves, we try to be something we're not, or feel something we're not, or maybe present to the world something that we're not. People may ask, well, how are you doing after the loss of that child? That we're fine, everything's great. And we may not tell people really the depth of how we're feeling. Again, we don't need to sit and wallow in self-pity and tell the whole world, that we cry every single day because we miss that child. But I think being honest with our emotions and our feelings in front of our family members is really valuable. It's valuable to our children. It's valuable to us because we are really walking in authenticity. And it is valuable to the relationship because it builds trust when a child sees that we are human and we feel maybe some of the same thoughts and emotions that our children or our other family members in our home might be feeling. There is something so unique about children, and what I think it is that they can see inauthenticity. They can see when we're faking it. They can see through our facades and our cloaks and our self-righteousness where we are pretending like everything is okay. They know when we're hurting, whether we say it or not. So it is valuable that we are honest and integrous and really are genuine with how we're feeling after or during or even before a foster child is getting ready to leave. And along with expressing our feelings when a foster child leaves is to make sure that our kids or the younger people in our home, they can hear us maybe talk about that child or talk about how we're feeling. We don't need to go to our 7-year-old son and have them counsel us because we can't pick ourselves up off the floor because we're in such despair over a child leaving. But we can have our child listen in. If we are talking to maybe a friend or a relative on the phone, we can say, yes, I really miss that child. Yes, they were a valuable part of our home. Yes, my heart is really hurting. And as a child or a younger person overhears that, somehow it almost like gives them permission to feel. Like it's okay if my mom or my dad or the adult in my home is hurting and grieving. That gives me permission to grieve as well. The eighth way to really prepare your children in your home to deal with a foster child leaving would be to make plans for your children that are in your home, maybe even your marriage, if it's your spouse that you are going to walk through a loss with. Because what that does is that gives our children, ourselves, our spouses, it gives us something to look forward to. We know that there is going to be a huge chunk of our heart and our lives and our time that is going to be cut out and removed from our home. And it is going to be hard. But if we have things that are set up that are positive to look forward to, that can help us to really focus our eyes forward versus on the past. Some of those ideas may be plan play dates. If you know a foster child is going to leave on a Thursday, maybe on Sunday afternoon, plan a play date for your child, or plan an overnighter with grandma and grandpa, or maybe sign them up for a sport or an event or a special day out, just you and that child, so that child has something forward to look forward to and plan and to prepare for in anticipation of a foster child leaving. And as you get ready to plan events or time together as a family, as you know that a foster child is leaving, I would highly encourage you to plan things that are out of your house. For some reason, the house is just a wealth of memories. You can find a baby sock from maybe an infant that you had, or you can find a toy of an older child that was in your home. And wherever you look, there can be memories of that child. And sometimes, honestly, that can be excruciating. It can be hard to move forward and make new memories and to laugh and really start building a new life without that child while you're sitting in the middle of these memories and really this place of deep grief. And so I would encourage you, plan days at the park, plan times out of the house, even a short vacation, maybe not Disneyland or a trip to Europe, but even short outings for the day, because that really helps as you get ready to prepare for the loss of a foster child. The ninth way to get ready to prepare your child for the loss of a foster child would be to set your child up with people that they can talk to, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or someone that's close to you. Be thinking now of people that are in that child's life or in your life as a couple that you guys can go to be able to really work through the feelings of loss. I know a lot of foster parents, when a foster child leaves after years of being in their home, they need to go to counseling. They need to regroup and really discuss what in the world happened. How did that turn out that way? How does our heart feel like that somebody died and we can't go on? And so really to prepare, really set up, plan and formulate people that are in that child's life that they can communicate with and really share their feelings with. And the 10th way that I would prepare family members for the loss of a foster child is to make sure that there are outlets apart from you as their biological parent or grandparent, because they are going to need those skills, those assets, those resources when that foster child is gone. When we are dealing with grief and we are having a child who's dealing with grief, we may feel so sad one day, and that child is so excited telling stories about the foster child that was in their home, or they may be so sad and you are, you're encouraged and looking towards the future. And just those emotions of dealing with grief, again, everyone deals with it in their own way. Those children or those young people or even your spouse needs different outlets. Journaling, again, is an excellent way. Again, check out that journal. It is the Feelings Journal. And again, I will link that. But find ways that your child can express what they were feeling. Maybe it's art. Maybe it is dancing. Grab a dance party, a whole bunch of friends, and have them come over so that they can really express themselves and be able to work through those emotions apart from you so that you don't feel like you need to be the sole crutch to that child while you're dealing with your own grief. And these are my final thoughts. As a foster parent of 16 years, we know and we've experienced the loss of children. And you, if you're a foster parent or are getting ready to get licensed, you are aware that a loss is coming if you haven't already experienced a significant loss of a child who's been in your home. There's really no book that you could read. There's no formula. I could sit here and do 12 hours of videos, but everyone deals with loss in their own unique way. And it's not something that I can tell you, this is what's going to happen, or this is how your child is going to respond, or your spouse is going to respond. The loss of a foster child in our home has really been some of the most monumental moments. It has switched our family, sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad ways, because of the significance of the loss and grief. And I think it's something that we don't really talk about enough. We talk about foster parents, having these kids and maybe an adoption or a successful reunification, but we don't really talk about the heart issues of foster parents and foster families and biological kids as children get ready to leave our home. But as I think about the losses in my life, I look back and I know that there are years, even now, 10, 15 years, where there is ache in my heart. There are rooms to my heart that are locked and sealed for specific children. But what I know is if I could go back and I could take away all the hurt, all the loss, all the memories, I wouldn't do it. Because having those children, every single one of them in my home, it was worth the sacrifice. It was worth the loss. Their lives, their story, even if they were in our home for a short time, the time that we spent with that child, it was worth everything that we've sacrificed and everything that we have gone through. And so I encourage you, as you get ready to think about the loss of a child leaving your home, Try to do it in an encouraging way, to know that you made a difference in that child, that you are radically changed, is my guess. Good, hopefully, for that child being in your home. And you hold on to the memories of that child and don't let them go, because they will always be a part of your heart, your spouse's heart, and your child's heart. And that is a gift that you've given your family, even despite the losses. Thanks, you guys, for being here. Make sure to check out the other videos on my channel. And again, subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you next time. Go out, live bold, and be brave. Thanks for watching.